distribution of demand. Then we have resource productivity, which is in terms of operational efficiency, the cost reduction and the capex freedom. Then we have government intervention. There are a lot of climate change regulations, there are a lot of renewable energy regulations which have been implemented. Then we have a growing requirement of green low carbon business models, and even customers' demands in terms of low carbon technologies have been increasing. So all these factors are going to shape up energy security issue in the near future. As far as renewable energy market growth is concerned, globally we have seen in 2010, this renewable energy investment has increased by almost 32%. It recorded a figure of almost $211 billion. Even the investment by the venture capital increased by around 59%, and public market investment increased by around 23%. There have been a lot of R&D activities, research and development activities globally from 2010 onwards, and it has recorded a figure of almost $9 billion, most of which were focused into solar power and biofuel generation. The top 5 countries in terms of renewable energy generation, we have China, we have Germany, United States, Italy and Brazil. If we consider India in terms of renewable energy investment, India is actually ranked at the 8th position with a total investment to the tune of around $3.8 billion, most of which is being invested into the wind power sector, and then comes the solar or the biomass based power projects. Now, over the last few years, we have seen that lot of policies and regulatory mechanisms have been introduced in various parts of the world. There are 138 countries which have actively taken renewable energy targets, and India is one of those countries who has taken the maximum number of policies in terms of renewable energy promotion. So all these policies, all these regulatory mechanisms can broadly be classified under 3 categories. It can be the regulatory policies, it can be the fiscal incentives, or it can be the public financing. So the regulatory policies, we have feed-in tariff systems, we have electric utility quota. In the fiscal incentives, we have capital subsidy, we have interest subsidy, we have various other forms of instruments like the REC, Renewable Energy Certification Scheme. And in public financing, we have the public investment mechanism. So we can see that India has already introduced various policies under all these 3 categories. Let us take an example of how the solar market in India has emerged. On June 2008, our Honorable Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh has launched the National Action Plan on Climate Change. The objective of the plan was to reduce the GHG intensity by around 25% within 2020 from the base year 2005. And one of the major instrument of reducing the GHG intensity is going through harness of renewable energy. Now, immediately after that, in 2009, the government has approved the Jawaharlal Nehru National Solar Mission Scheme, post which there have been guidelines in terms of migration of various ongoing projects into the JNNSM, and we have seen that lot of projects aggregating a capacity of around 84 megawatt has been migrated to the JNNSM scheme. Then in 2009, we have also seen that there are various guidelines in terms of off-grid PV and decentralized solar power applications which have been introduced. We have guidelines in terms of rooftop and small solar power generation program. Then we have guidelines for new grid-connected solar power programs. IREDA has introduced a new refinancing scheme for off-grid solar power projects. So all these have actually created a push into the solar market, into the investment in the solar market. And finally, we have seen that in 2010, the RPO mechanism, the Renewable Purchase Obligation Mechanism, was introduced, whereas CERC has empowered the various state electricity regulatory commission to come up with the state-specific renewable purchase obligation. So this was one big push in the renewable energy sector in development. All the states have by now have come out with their own renewable purchase obligation. Some of the states have even created a solar target and a non-solar target. So this is how India is positioned globally in terms of renewable energy development. If we consider the annual capacity addition, as far as wind technology is concerned, India is positioned at the 3rd rank. And as far as solar hot water, solar heater projects are concerned, India is ranked at 4th position. But if we look at the total installed capacity, India is still at the 5th position, and that is prima facie because of the wind power, massive improvement in the wind power sector in India. But India has a lot to do in terms of the other renewable energy, be it solar, be it microhydel, or be it biomass-based power projects. Now let's have a look what are the technologies that we presently have in India. So this is like a plot which is plotting the current investment attractiveness vis-a-vis the development potential of various renewable technologies over the next 5 years. So we see that the solar and the wind power has got the maximum potential, and to that extent it is likely to attract the maximum investment, followed by biomass and small hydro, which have got a little lesser potential. But various technologies like geothermal, the tidal, or the offshore wind, they are having very little less potential in the market, and as a result it is expected that they will attract very low investment. There are two types of drivers broadly. One is like the internal drivers and one are the external drivers which is shaping the renewable energy market in India. As far as the internal drivers are concerned, we have the energy demand supply gap, and we have a lot of challenges in terms of waste management, which is in a way which is developing the renewable energy market. We have issues related to energy security and water scarcity. Being into the tropical region, we have abundance of solar power, abundance of wind power. We have benefits under the clean development mechanism, the carbon revenue, which makes renewable projects viable option. And we also have skilled manpower at a comparatively lesser cost, which makes us uniquely positioned globally to come out with a global clean tech business model. Now, as far as the external drivers are concerned, we have coal, which is a naturally depleting resource, and as a result, the cost of coal is going up. And that is why, the cost of power generation with coal-based technology is now becoming very high. Then we have global growth in the power demand. We have issues related to global warming and climate change, which is again restricting the growth of coal-based power generation or fossil fuel-based power generation. And then we also have various R&D activities in the renewable energy sector, which is reducing the cost of technology and hence the cost of power generation with renewable sources and making it comparable with that of coal-based power generation. So this is like the potential of wind energy generation. This is a state-specific potential. And we can understand that wind energy has almost a potential of around 50,000 megawatt, whereas we have so far harnessed only 15,000 megawatt. So there is a long way to go even in the wind energy sector. Similarly, this is the solar radiation map in India. We can see that India typically has a solar radiation of 4 to 7 kilowatt hour per square kilometer, which ultimately results in an overall aggregate capacity of 100 gigawatt. Now, in line with this potential, the Jawaharlal Nehru National Solar Mission has defined the capacity addition program. So it is expected as per this mission that by FY13 there is going to be a capacity addition to the tune of around 1000 megawatt, which is going to increase to about 20,000 megawatt by FY2022. Now there is also one more scenario where we are heading towards the grid parity. As I mentioned that the technology cost has been going down because of so many R&D activities has been happening. Initially when we ventured into the solar market, the typical cost was like 14-15 crores a megawatt. But even today we have technologies which is costing somewhere around 8-9 crores a megawatt. Now with this significant reduction in the technology cost, the cost of power generation with solar technology is reducing. On the other hand, we have coal-based power costs going up because we don't have coal. We are importing coal from the market. We have issues related to the rupee-dollar fluctuations. So as a result, what is happening that slowly we are heading towards a regime where we are going to have a grid parity and where renewable energy or renewable power generation cost would be very comparable with that of fossil fuel-based power cost. So this is going to act as a key driver for the renewable energy development in India. So this is like an illustration of how various countries are expecting the growth of grid parity globally. So in a more aggressive scenario in India, we expect that the grid parity is to be achieved somewhere around 2017-18. But if we consider a realistic estimate, it is going to be achieved somewhere around 2020. Now, if we consider the biomass energy, this is one sector where India has not done so well. If we look at the US has produced enormously with the biomass energy. Even if we consider Brazil, Brazil has almost a generation of around 36, 37 tetrawatt hour. Whereas if I compare India, India is producing hardly 3 to 4 tetrawatt hour per annum. So although we see that the biodiesel production globally has increased by around 32% over the last decade, India has not tapped this potential. But if we consider the potential of biomass energy in India, we will see that India typically generates about 500 million metric tons of biomass, which includes various types of biomass like rice husk, rice straw, we have bagasse, we have cotton stalks, everything. Now almost 70 to, this is a very unstructured sector, and almost 70 to 75% of this biomass is being used as a fodder or a fuel or in other applications. So we are only having 20 to 25% of this potential, which will again be around 120 to 150 million metric tons, which can be used for power generation. And with this availability, we can generate almost 18,000 megawatt of power with an addition of 5,000 megawatt of power from only bagasse-based cogeneration projects. Apart from the standard wind, solar, hydro or biomass-based power projects, there are various other technologies which are now at the R&D stage in the renewable energy. For example, algae-based biofuel productions. But these are all like into the R&D stage, and India is still going to take some time before its replication. Now let us look at the economics of the renewable energy. For a typical renewable energy generated in India, they have like 6 options of selling their power. It can sell the power directly to the distribution company in which area it operates, and that way it will not be eligible for REC. It can sell it at the preferential tariff. The other option is that the renewable energy generator can sell the power to the distribution company at the average pool power purchase cost and be eligible for REC. It can also sell its power to other distribution company at an average pool power purchase cost and be eligible for REC. It can sell the power to the open access consumers at a market determined price and be eligible for REC. It has an option of selling the power to power exchanges again at a market driven price and be eligible for REC. And then finally it can also use the power for captive consumption and still be eligible for REC. So these are like the broad models which are presently available with a renewable energy generator, and based on them only the cost benefit can be worked out. This is like a snapshot of the various technology wise cost benefit. I'll just give you a brief of that. So this is in nutshell what India presently have. This is just an indicative figure. So we can consider that typically for a solar power project, the capital cost would be around 10 crores per megawatt. The tariff ranges from 6.5 to 9 rupees, 10 rupees per unit, and the return, we can expect a return of around 10 to 11%. So and so forth for wind, the cost has gone down significantly. It is very much comparable with that of a thermal power cost. It is costing around 5.5 crores per megawatt at present. Tariff we are getting somewhere between 4 to 6 rupees and a return of around 15%. Similarly, for small hydro, the cost is somewhere around 6 crores per megawatt. Tariff we are getting around 4 to 5 rupees, and typically the return that we can get is around 12 to 17%. So this is like in nutshell the cost economics of renewable energy projects. But beyond the typical cost economics, renewable energy projects have also got certain economic benefits. Say for example in terms of job creation. So this is like an illustration of the thousands of jobs being created in the renewable energy sector in various countries. So we see that in India, by now we have created almost 400,000 of jobs in the renewable energy sector, considering the entire value chain. So this is also one of the key attributes which is going to promote the development of renewable energy in India. This is like the global investment that is being expected into the renewable energy sector, both in developed and developing countries. So the expectation is that more and more investment would be focusing into the solar power sector, then followed by wind, then we have biomass, and then hydropower projects. So this is like the regional distribution of the investment which has happened over the last 10 years between 2004 to 2012 in the renewable energy sector. Now to sum up, although we understand that there are a lot of potential of the renewable energy sector in India, but at the same point of time the country has also been facing certain challenges. For example, we do not have a comprehensive single policy for renewable energy. The RPO mechanisms has entrusted the state regulators to come up with the policies, and what is happening is few states which have got higher potential have taken a ambitious target, and few states which do not have that much of potential are taking a very depressed or very low target. And as a result, there are typical conflicts in terms of a uniform distribution of the targets, renewable energy targets across the states. Secondly, most of these policies have been issued as and when basis, depending on the specific requirement of the renewable energy technology. So there is no long-term cohesive planning in terms of how these renewable energy policies is going to shape up the market of renewable energy in India. So as a fact, what we understand, there are a lot of opportunities, there is a scope or there is a requirement for Bengal chambers to go for policy advocacy with the government in terms of framing up the policy. I think the charges were. So there is a market or there is a requirement for Bengal chambers to do some policy advocacy with the government, which will not only concise the renewable energy policy, but in a way it will help the renewable energy development in India. So that's all. Thank you very much.
Good evening to all of you. There have been two interesting lectures, but unfortunately I missed about 60 or 70% of it. Because I saw in the program that one of the presentations was on a traditional power generation technology, and another is a modern and alternative, non-traditional and alternative power generation technique, mainly on solar energy. And I listened to part of the presentation, and it was very encouraging to see that that young speaker from Ernst & Young, he himself is young too. So he covered the whole gamut of alternative sources of energy, from solar energy to biomass. In fact, the situation is now grave in the energy sector, and we have to exploit all the energy sources, the alternative sources, renewable and all sources. In fact, while I was listening to this presentation, what came to my mind, that another very important source of power generation, and if that source can be properly utilized, that will solve a lot of other problems, which is the municipal solid waste. That can be a very good source of energy, waste to energy. But unfortunately, in our country, we are lagging far behind the other countries in this area. Only a few plants are there, and the plants which were installed for generation of energy from municipal solid waste, those also did not run well. One very recent plant which was installed in near Delhi, it was closed down for various reasons, and I believe it has opened again. But above all, the main theme is that we have to exploit each and every possible source of energy if we are to survive in the area of gradually reducing available energy. We are particularly in a disadvantageous position because we do not have a lot of oil, and now since the value of our currency is going down, so that will put an extra load on our oil import bill. Anyway, but it is encouraging to see that a lot of other sources, they have been highlighted and pointed out, and I believe that those sources will be utilized increasingly by all of us, all the industries, and there will be a pragmatic renewable energy policy in near future which will help in solving the energy problem, at least to a reasonable extent. Anyway, so I believe we can invite a few questions, and so that if you have any questions, you can ask, and then there may be about 10 minutes of interaction session. Thank you.
Well, I'm S. Basu. Question is to Mr. Sudhanu Ghosh. In your extremely interesting lecture, you have mentioned about clean coal technology for mitigation of CO2. Now, there is some latest developments in this clean coal technology by IGCC, that Integrated Gasification Combined Cycle. What they have done, US Department of Energy with Coal Research Center Pittsburgh and Membrane Technology Center California with other private parties, they have developed actually from the coal gasification unit under pressure and around over 1200 degrees centigrade Celsius temperature, their syngas, that is CO plus hydrogen, is passed through a shipped gas reactor separated by a selective membrane barrier, where, hydrogen formed, excess hydrogen, that is passed through the membrane, which goes to the, gas turbine, that is a hydrogen turbine for power generation, and the remaining part, that CO2, which cannot pass through the membrane, that is passed through another membrane barrier selectively, whereby CO2 is concentrated, pressurized, and used for various purposes, dry gas. That is a technology which has been tested in a huge pilot plant scale with very, very encouraging results. That appears to be the, very good alternative for CO2 mitigation as a clean coal technology. Because in a country like India, we'll have to live with coal as the main, fuel for our power generation plant. This is just for your information.
Sir, this is what makes our conclave so special. People like you. I mean, and enrich the entire discussion. This was a learning, to be very honest with you, this was a learning phase for me. Thank you very much for the information. I agree with you.
In fact, very good information are available in chemical engineering progress of the AICHE, American Institute of Chemical Engineering, where 2008, 9, 10, you will find a series of very good, excellent papers on that, really. So, very good, valuable information are available, but still some gray areas are there to be settled.
No, it's the highest level of coal-fired technology for power plants. So, and obviously America is going to take the lead. So as I said, since we have to, as you agreed, we have large-scale issues. But IGCC, well, it comes with a cost, as we all saw. So I think what India needs to do is what I think we are doing now, progressively move, as I said, from this age-old PF combustion to supercritical, which we are now doing, as Mr. Mukherjee had mentioned, then to ultra-supercritical, then to PFBC, and then maybe now next generation would probably see IGCC, when the technology would improve and the costs would come down.
I can just add one thing, that this membrane-based technologies are rapidly growing, and the kind of technology for separation of hydrogen from carbon dioxide that Professor Basu told about, that has an additional advantage that you separate the carbon dioxide for sequestering, and you get the cleanest form of fuel, hydrogen, to generate energy. But hopefully this kind of technology will be more mature in near future for application on a large scale. Thank you.
Sir, I have one question to Dr. Shah. You gave you emphasized more to biomass combustions, and this is very challenging because India has a tremendous potential in biomass. So why, and the biotechnology also, the students, those are learning, and I'm teaching also the students to emphasize towards the biological sequestrations, the biological conversions, everything. Because the trends, we have to concentrate on the sustainability towards the biological system and not with the chemical. So far we are concerned. Now, why India is still so lagging behind? Because they are not getting so much enthusiastic to take over this biomass conversion process in all sense. Either it is what you can say in solid waste or in the liquid state or recycling or municipal waste, whatever, or kitchen waste or market waste, whatever it might be. And selectively, I believe that a lot of potential is there if some kind of genetically engineered microbes can be introduced, bioremediation can be emphasized more with the selective area, and so a lot of gas, a lot of energy can be recovered. How do you think in that respect?
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Sir, what I understand that, in this particular biomass-based sector, it is quite unstructured. There are supply-side related issues in terms of consistent fuel supply to a power plant. If we look at the solid waste also, we have seen in most of the municipalities in India, they do not have a proper solid waste management plan. They do not have a proper segregation technology in place. There are certain small-scale projects where, solid waste-based humate or solid waste-based fertilizers which have been commercially implemented, but again, large-scale replication have not been, experienced in India. So one of the key reasons why biomass sector has not been harnessed to its potential is because of the supply-side constraint or the unstructured nature of the sector itself. Secondly, if we look at the typical areas or typical geography where the biomass projects have come up, let's say in the UP belt or in the Chhattisgarh belt, we have also encountered a situation wherein, when the realization was there in terms of the value of biomass, suddenly the cost of biomass increased many folds. In fact, in many plants we have saw that the cost of power generation is almost equivalent to a coal-based power generation or even more. So, immediately the drivers to replace coal-based power generation lacked. So that is one of the key reasons why, because of this unstructured nature of the sector, and there is no regulations, there is no structured regulation in terms of what could be the cost of biomass. People are not investing into biomass-based power projects to that extent, so that, it can capture the entire potential.
Sir, myself a Kalani University student. My question is to Mr. Shaunak Shah. India has a long stretch of coastline. What is the scope of tidal energy as renewable energy source? Thank you.